Welcome, Blue Collar Millionaires. I have got an exciting couple of guests here. Me and Kevin are interested to hear what they're about to inform us on. These guys are some players. I got Matthew and Lou. I know Matthew from another mastermind that I'm a part of. Another reason why you guys need to get into the right rooms because you get the rock around with amazing players like this right here on the screen. So Matthew, Lou, me and Kevin appreciate y'all coming on board. Tell us your backstory and bring us up to present day.
Well, thanks for having us, first of all, Chris. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. So how far back do you guys want to go? Because we can go all the way back, or we can
go back to the beginning. Go back to the Genesis.
All right. So for me personally, man, I was never really a good student. I lived in a 3-bedroom house with 6 or 7 family members, depending on the day of the week. Mostly slept on the couch because there wasn't a bed available. Never really good in school. Flash forward to high school, didn't graduate from high school on time, failed the reading exam, started working in a diner, didn't know what I was going to do with my life. My friends were all away at college. They come home from college. I'm working in the diner, serving them one day. And simply one of the guys that they brought home with them that was staying with them was like, where's he going? That day I got pissed off. I grabbed the newspaper. If you guys remember newspapers back then, we're talking circa 1999, right? So I grabbed the roll of quarters, didn't have a cell phone back then. Most people really didn't, right? And I went and I got that suit that I was supposed to wear for graduation, borrowed my grandfather's tie, his button-down shirt, jumped on the Staten Island ferry with a roll of quarters, bunch of jobs circled in the newspaper. No resume, didn't even know what it was. Didn't know that I had to call and ask for an interview and I couldn't just show up. So I got there, I got down to my last roll of quarters. I guess you could say this was my first time cold calling. I cold called a firm that was right on Cortlandt Street, which is directly across the street from the World Trade Center. And everybody come back next week. I'm like, I happen to be downstairs right now. I'm not going to be around next week. Can we make it happen? They're like, yeah, sure. Come up and make sure you bring your resume. Didn't even have a resume. Just showed up. Long story short, sat there for about an hour before they came and got me. The guy brings me into the room. I didn't even know what was going on. I just seen it looked like you guys probably saw Wolf of Wall Street. You probably saw Boiler Room. It was like that. It was a football field full of people, mostly all guys. Actually, 99.9% of them all guys, right? Jumping up and down, screaming. I see this board with numbers on it. It says 1 million, 2 million. And I'm like, what is that? And it was the money that they were making for the year. I'm like, I didn't even understand it at the time. I was so naive to it all. So Ross, the guy's name was Ross. He brings me in to sit down and he goes, so what do you know about stocks? I go, absolutely nothing. Granted, I was up from the night before because I worked the overnight shift and I was exhausted. At this point, I'm waiting there for hours. He's asking me questions, couldn't answer a goddamn question. He goes to me, what makes you think you could do this job? I just turned around and said, I know I can fucking do this job because I was just at wit's end at that time. He gets up, closes the door. I'm like, fuck, I fucked this one up again. Comes back in with this guy, Barry Rapkin. Now, if you guys remember the 90s, Barry Rapkin's probably 5'2". He has that, what is it? Business in the front in the back, but he's all buttoned up. He's that guy, yeah, baby, on the phone, like the big block cell phones back in the day, pearly white teeth. He's like, what's up, buddy? What's up, buddy? What can I do for you? I'm like, I don't know. Ross goes to him, tell him exactly what you told me. I'm like, I know I could do this job. He's like, no, tell me exactly what you told me. He goes, I know I can fucking do this job. He goes, see you 7:30 tomorrow morning, kid. Closes the door, walks away. Next day I walk in, I'm handed a stack of leads. I go, guys, I don't even know what a stock is. Don't worry about it, pal. Here's your script. Here's your leads. A stock is something that blinks red or green on your screen, and go to work. And then from that point on, that's how I got involved in Wall Street, man.
What an intro. That's awesome. Lou, I need to know how y'all linked up and where your story began to the point to where you
Matt and I was blessed. Matt and I were just kind of pounding the same pavement. I was also downtown, native New Yorker. My story is probably the same as thousands of other stories. Firstborn of immigrant parents, right? So the way to stability in my parents' eyes was through school. So from day one, it was doctrinated in us. You have to have 100% attendance. You got to get to school, got to get your degree. But I didn't lose that blue collar work ethic. My dad was a mechanic. my grandfather was a truck driver. So you don't lose that blue collar ethic because you were just indoctrinated with it from early on. Matt and I met in the canyons of Wall Street. That's why our podcast is called the Liquid Lunch Project. We hang out at the same bars, we go to the same restaurants, and you're doing all your business at the bar. The joke with the bartenders was we're always busy because during good times you need a drink and during bad times you need a drink. So there was more business being done between 5 to 7 than there was from 7 to 5. So that's where Matt and I met. And then we always maintained contact. And then a few years back, we kind of took that blue collar work ethic and we realized that there was a gap in the industry. And the gap is pretty obvious if you think about it, is when a small business gets to a certain breadth, you get to a certain volume, you can't afford a general counsel. You can't afford a board of trustees. You can't afford a board of directors. You can't afford, a CFO, right? But you need that because, you're making the widgets, you're cranking, all day long. So you need that expertise to help you run the business. If you're good with your hands, you're probably not good with paper.
Yeah.
So we just try daily to find the platforms and services for small businesses that large businesses are normally offered. And that takes the form of creative loan products, tax credits, scaling strategies. And that's what Matt and I are obsessed with doing all day long. We literally wake up in the morning and say, does this help small business? And if it does, we go for it. And if it doesn't, we don't.
So you're both from Wall Street. You got the money lingo going on, and now you're helping small businesses find the money and the counsel so that they can keep what they're making and keep growing. Is that in a nutshell?
Pretty much. What we're actually looking to do is give small businesses the same tools and resources that larger corporations have.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, when you work on Wall Street, you work inside this big framework. You have departments. You don't have an answer to a question. You can walk, you can knock on somebody's door. As small business owners, we don't have that luxury, right? And what we really started to do, and what I started to do, because our company was really only formed, one division of our company, right after COVID happened, okay? One thing that I did is when I sold my investment bank to my partners, I started lending my own money off my own personal balance sheet, right, to small businesses. And one thing I realized very quickly was businesses needed more than just a check. My phone was ringing off the hook from clients from Maine all the way to California because they didn't know how to get a PPP loan. Their bankers couldn't answer them. They couldn't get them on the phone. Their attorneys didn't know what to do. Their accountants had no clue. And I was the one talking to them, and I was up 18 hours a day reading through these bills and figuring out how to get it done and what connections to get them to banks. Then it happened again with EIDL, right? And we did this free of charge, and we grew a really good client base. We made absolutely zero money off it, but we helped people. I have emails from people saying, you saved my business when nobody else could help me. And that's when the light bulb went off. We realized that there's nobody in the corner for small business that can help them.
Wow. Yeah.
The banker gives them a check, the attorney gives them legal advice, charges them, but they don't have somebody to quarterback or coach them in that game. Well, there's a lot of coaches out there. I have nothing wrong with coaches, but we're considered more consultants because we roll up our sleeves and we get our hands dirty. We don't tell you how to do it. We actually work alongside you to get it done.
So what's your ideal client?
So our client is probably $20 million in gross annual revenue and below, all the way down to $500,000. Right.
Okay.
So we also invest in startups, right? We do some angel investing across the board, not big checks. We always start out small, somewhere between 5 and 25,000. If we like the idea, we bet on the jockey, right?
Yeah.
But they have to have some type of track record and bring something to the table, Right. But one of the reasons we wrote our book was there's a major opportunity across the board. And you guys talk about this all the time. 40% of baby boomers own a business. They own more businesses out there. They're retiring. They're getting long in the tooth, and they have no exit strategy, right? Believe it or not, 1 out of every 3 businesses right now don't even have a website. So if we could take what we've learned in this internet age, adapt it to these blue collar, salt of the earth businesses that have a great business, but they just don't know how to scale it, I think you can increase revenue 3 to 5 times over.
Absolutely. There's
Absolutely.
a ton of low hanging fruit there. So what are some of the skill sets and characteristics that you bring from y'all's background and you find it's most applicable to your clients, to these blue collar businesses, 20 million and below, which, I mean, that's a pretty dang big gap. I mean, there's a lot of thresholds that get crossed over from 500,000 to 20 million.
Chris, Kevin, there are certain character traits we've learned, and Matt and I have learned this the hard way, that you cannot teach. For example, persistence, perseverance, tenacity. You can't teach that. Either your parents taught that to you when you were 5, or you will never have that. Once you're 25, 30, 35 years old, you cannot inculcate that into a human. It's over. There's only certain, they say like there's only certain times that you can learn a second or third language. The brain closes. That opportunity is done. So when Matt and I say we're trade agnostic, yeah, we don't care if you're a pool installer or a mechanic or a truck driver. Our concern is more your personality, because the definition of small business is obstacles are going to come in your way on a daily basis. And we're not talking about little microcosms, the little rainstorm, oh, well, we have a cash flow problem, or, our oven broke. I mean, look at what happens over the last 20 years. We've had terrorist attack. We've had congressmen gone amok and ruined our economy 3 times. We've had superstorms. It doesn't end. I feel like the small business owner is getting into the ring with Mike Tyson and getting jabbed and jabbed and jabbed, and they just have to keep standing, right? But that takes tenacity, right? If you have the first obstacle gets in your way, you fold your cards. Small business is not for you, and small business is not for everyone. It is a very difficult enterprise, but for those that figure it out, it's very rewarding. You get to spend time with the family. You get to control your own destiny. Those are some check marks that are very difficult to negate.
I love what you said there about you can't teach persistence. I never met somebody who wasn't persistent at 25 or 30. I'm 50 now, and I know a lot of these same people who became persistent. Like, I'm not saying there isn't someone. I just never met him.
True.
Like, it's the truth. And I had a friend one time, he's like, yeah, I'm going to start a business like you, man. I want to have more time with my family. I said, don't do that. Stay exactly where you are. Like, everyone needs to understand, like, it's going to be way, way more work for several years. And then you can later live the life you want and do what you want. That is so true, though. That persistence. I think that's like that and being resourceful are the number one things.
Those are the 2 traits that I try to instill in my girls, right? I have 2 little girls. I need them, number 1, to be resourceful. I need them not to rely on anybody else, and that includes me. My oldest one's going in the 6th grade. I told her this is her last summer. She's cut off. Whatever she wants, she has to start working for. Right?
Yeah.
Persistence, yeah, you just got to keep going. And I think, I wasn't the most persistent kid. When I got into like junior high school and high school and I really wanted something, you'd have to drag me off the field, right? You'd have to drag me off the mat, Here's the problem that we see with a lot of small businesses. Something goes wrong. Their first thing to do is throw money at the problem, right? They're solving the symptom, but not the disease. So they're putting good money after bad. It's like refilling a leaky bucket. If you don't close that hole, it's going to be wrong. So when we're marketing and we're doing marketing in our business, we always market for people that need money. Every small business needs some type of money at some point in time, right? But the thing is, when they come into us, we show them that, hey, you don't need $100,000. Let's close this gap here. Let's close this gap here. We can get away with 25. We don't want to laden you with debt. But where that comes in is these business owners need to be coachable, and they need to get rid of their fucking ego.
True. But that ego is what got them as far as they have, because they feed off that as confidence. The problem is it's a double-edged sword.
Correct.
It keeps once they get a little bit of success, have some wins underneath, then at that point it turns into a stumbling block, because it's like they won't accept any new knowledge unless it's something that they grabbed on their own as a belief system. I've thought about that a lot, how the ego is really what gets a lot of us started, gets us in our game. And then all of a sudden, boom, that's what our brick wall is. And it keeps us from moving forward because we're so slow to ask for help and show ourselves as vulnerable.
Man, I used to be that guy. I'd walk into a room and say, "Hey, look at me. I have this. I have that. Yeah. Oh, you did this. Oh, I did that." Mm-hmm. You won't even notice me in a room anymore. I'll be in the back, quiet, taking notes.
But gentlemen, it's also a perspective, right? Think about it. From an early age, we're taught that the answer to the question is A, B, C, D, or maybe E. But the reality is there are so many routes that you can take to get to that right answer or get to that success. I mean, some people want to work 24/7. Others like to delegate. Others will put in the systems and processes. There is no right answer. And we have to understand that there is no right answer. But the more people that you can surround yourself with that give you constructive opinions, and constructive is the key, right? You don't want to be destructive. When a person comes to you and says, I need a loan, the first question we ask is, well, why do you need that loan? Like, what will that, assuming hypothetically that money is available in 2 hours, what would you do with that money? And that's right. All they're doing is putting themselves deeper in debt because there's something critically wrong with their process.
So I love how you're taking it back to getting clarity, finding the root of the situation of why growth has stopped and why they think money is going to fix it. So, I mean, you're pulling everything back to data to get this clarity. So tell me some of the areas that you've seen with these small businesses that are pretty common areas that need to be fixed, that you guys identify and help them move to the next level.
It's very simple. You need to tell me how much it costs you to turn your lights on every day. You will be surprised how many multi-million-dollar businesses do not know their margins. They can't even spell balance sheet sometimes. It's bad, right? They think their top line revenue and they're eating out of their business, not showing a healthy profit margin because their car is out of their business. They're eating out of their business. It's the American way. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of businesses that do that. But if this is your bread and butter, what is your strategy, right? Do you just want to roll this and have a really good lifestyle, which is fine, which is great? Or do you really want to grow enterprise value for your business and be able to exit one day? It's kind of sad when we have to get on the phone with somebody that's worked 25 and 30 years growing their business, and some business broker told them, maybe I can get you a couple $1 million. And when you show them the numbers, they just don't believe you, right? Their business is really not worth what it really, what they were told or what they did. They worked 25 years, their whole life to do this, but they didn't grow the enterprise value to make it sellable or exitable.
How do you grow enterprise value?
Keep money in the business, scale it, monitor your profit margins. Very simple.
Money in the business, scale it, monitor the profit margins.
Show profits at the end of the day. You don't want to pay Uncle Sam. Nobody does, right? But you got to show year over year growth inside a company.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. It's the only way you're going to be bankable.
Now, I'm not saying don't write off your car. That's a plus, right? But don't go to the extreme to where you're showing $100,000 loss, not paying any taxes, because if you get a company that shows $100,000 losses across the board, has no hard assets, right? A customer list with the guy's name on the front door, fellas, what is that worth?
Yeah.
Chris, here's a great litmus test. Litmus test Matt and I like to place on a business. Tell the principal to go on vacation for 2 weeks. Just go on vacation 2 weeks. Nothing exaggerated. Just go on vacation. Go on a cross-country trip with your family and kids. Come back in 2 weeks. Let me know where your business stands. Because if your business is in shatters, then obviously you don't have the systems and processes in place. But if your business did fine and they didn't realize you were gone, then you've got a nice business.
I love that test, Lou. It's so true. I just wrote a post. I'm in Chicago this week. I'm on like a 4-day trip. And I wrote a post in our Blue Collar Millionaire. It's going to come out in a couple hours. And that's exactly what it's about, because I was that guy. First, I was like, I could never go on vacation. That's ridiculous. It would all. And then when you go on, if you're looking at your phone and you're working the whole time, or if you didn't do it, the whole thing would, you basically, some of these business owners basically stop their business to go away on vacation. You just have a job then. You don't have a business. I don't even tell my team I went away. This would be if they were listening, this would be the first time. If you shouldn't even have to tell your team. You should replace yourself that you're not even that important. They shouldn't even know you're gone.
Kevin, I want to be clear. This, soapbox that Matt and I are on was a real strong steel reinforced soapbox built by years and years of fuck-ups. We fuck shit up so bad, but I'm now 48. Matt is just a couple of months younger than me. Sorry, pal. But we've taken that lifelong lesson and now trying to apply it to our business. It's not that, we had this one epiphany and said, oh, wow, this is the way to do it. We just figured this out over years and years of trials and tribulations.
Yeah, this is not something that started overnight with us. We had to learn how to do this too, right? And it's taken a while, but you also have to have people that you trust, and what it comes down to. I'm leaving next month. I'm going to Italy with my family for the whole month of July. I've never done that before in my life. But you know what? I know Lou's got the ship. He's not even going to call me. I'm going to call him 17 times because I'm anal like that. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? Because I can't relax. That's just the hustler's curse, right?
Right? No, send me the olive oil. Send me the olive oil.
But it's nice to have that, and nice to have a team or a partner that can handle operations that you believe in to do that. Because I've gone away before and had partners and come back to fucking nightmares.
Yeah, so let's talk about that real quick, because I think that's a really important topic. And you both alluded to it earlier in the conversation about when it came to investing. You bet on the jockey, and you were talking about someone with a proven track record. What's the characteristics of these upper management individuals that allow a business owner to go on vacation and come back to a business that has at least been steady, but preferably grown while you were gone?
So I know Matt wants to put in his pearls of wisdom here, but I'd like to add something that is very important. Not everyone in a business has to get along. Not everyone has to be a copy and paste personality of the principal. The more diversity you have and the more different skill set and the more different character traits, it's like a soup, right? The more different ingredients you put in there, the better it tastes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think having that like you may have someone that is really good at IT and marketing, like Matt, coupled with someone that's really good at systems and processes like me, and we make a very dynamic duo. We're very, very different, but Matt and I like to say we have the same love language, right? We like to make the client happy, and we like to make money. We're very transparent. We're not here to make the world a better place. We're not going to sing Kumbaya and hug some trees. We're very practical people. If we can help small business owner, that kind of helps us, right? So it's very simple. But we also realize that 1 + 1 with Matt and I usually equals 3 or 4 because we're very different in our skill set. Now, we also realize that there are huge gaps in our knowledge. We're not lawyers. We're not CFOs. That stuff you can kind of outsource.
So to answer your question, I think it's going to take time before you could fully trust somebody, right? Not 90 days. It's going to take a year to 2 years. Think about when you're in a relationship with somebody. Usually you have that honeymoon period. It's that first quarter. Second quarter, the first fight comes around. Third quarter, maybe you're still together, but after a year, you're going to know where it's really going. And it really comes down to trust and accountability, right?
Yep.
Of these people, okay? People are going to mess up and people are going to make mistakes. I know that. I make a lot of them. But it's how do you pick up the ball after you drop it, and what do you do next? We've gone through, we don't like to say that we have employees. We have partners. Everything that we do these days to make our life easier, people have skin in the game with us. They know the outcome, how much money they can make. And one thing I tell them is, I am not the most eloquent person. When you speak to me, I'm just going to give it to you straight, and I'm going to hold you accountable. If you miss that deadline once, okay. Twice, not good.
Mhm.
3 times, you're not the guy I'm leaving my business for to go on vacation with. Does that answer your question? It's really accountability. I don't expect you to know everything, but I also don't expect you to come to me for everything. Fitfo, figure it the fuck out, right? And then after an hour, if you can't figure it out, call me and I'll let you know what I got, and let's try to figure it out together, right?
Yeah.
But don't just call me because I'm not going to be your crutch. I don't need to be. When I worked on Wall Street and we grew our investment bank, this is one of the reasons I left, guys. We started with 4 of us. We grew it to 80 registered reps, which means we had to make 800 hires because 1 out of every 10 passes their Series 7.
Wow.
Okay. So that's a pretty decent sized firm if you know anything about how to get people licensed, pass Series 7s. It wasn't bad, but here was the problem. I was a partner in the firm. I could not work on my own business unless I got in at 5:30 in the morning. 7:30 when the guys came in, I was their banker. I was their psychologist. I was their coach. I was their trainer, right? By the time I got home to my wife, I was exhausted and didn't want to deal with anything anymore. Had to get back up at 5:30 and work on the business again. We didn't want that. So me and Luigi, when we built Shield Advisory Group, we said, let's reverse engineer this. What do we like about having people work with us? What didn't, right? I realized the people that were my partners on Wall Street, right, that had skin in the game, that ate when I ate, did more, were more reliable, right? Because they kind of controlled their own destiny inside of us. So when we do stuff, we'll start other companies and we'll have an operator, but let's say for the accounting firms that we have a CPA that's our partner in that, right? If he grows, we grow, he grows, right? If he doesn't work out and he's not accountable and deadlines get missed, he's gone. And then we're going to replace him and try to find somebody else out. But again, it's not going to happen overnight to get that trust and accountability factor with people.
Yeah, man, I love that stuff. I read Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki, one of his books. And that's when I realized I thought I had a business because I had employees. And when he said, if you can't leave for 2 weeks, I think it was his margin of time was 2 weeks, and come back and it's not steady or it has grown, then you don't have a business, you have a job. And one of the things that I had to learn in my process, because that hit me in the face, and I was like, man, I'm over here thinking I've got a business, but I don't, because I can't leave. Because when I went on vacation, I always came back to fires. And I had to immediately put them out.
But Chris, let's qualify that. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, the guy that hangs his shingle as a dentist, you know, the Mr. Chris Smith dentist, that's not a business. That's a guy who is unemployable, doesn't want to work for someone else, and just wants to work on his own terms. But that's not a practice. That's not a business. You can't sell that, because if Mr. Chris Smith, Dr. Chris Smith is gone, what's left? That shingle and maybe a chair or two.
Well, that's the trap that the blue collar entrepreneur gets hung up in, because now, like you earlier said, they're not building any enterprise value. And what happens if they get hurt and they laid up in the hospital and they can't communicate? What if they have a car wreck and they're in a coma? What happens to the business then, because the driver is gone? And so what I had to do is, when I came into the office, I started I had to learn. It was a very difficult thing to learn, because you're a problem solver as an entrepreneur. So you always give the solutions when the problems come to you. But I had to learn to tell them, you bring me 2 to 3 solutions and you tell me which one is the best, and I'll help you decide out of the solutions. But don't bring me a problem. Bring me a solution. That was the number one thing that started to turn around my establishment. And then I had to just get real clear. What are the expectations? What do I want out of an individual? And that's why I asked you that question. You know, how do you identify the correct partner? But I think my next question is going to be, how do you know when you're ready for an upper management hire? Let's say that I'm a $1 million company or a $500,000 company, service-based business, and I'm ready to be that guy that can leave and go on vacation. At what milestone, what point, what triggers am I looking at in my company to where I say, okay, I'm ready to hire a number 1 or a number 2?
So I think you guys aren't going to like my answer here, right? A lot of these coaching programs, everybody says, work on your business, get out of your business. Biggest problem I see is when that mindset's instilled, is people leave their business too early.
Agreed.
They don't really have a business yet. You can bring somebody in as your right hand and train them side by side. But until you're doing, I'd say at least $1 million a year in revenue, it's not really a business, man.
I agree.
I agree.
Because
Look, if you're a
see
contractor,
people,
if you're a contractor, you shouldn't be sending out your own POs, your requisitions, your change orders. You shouldn't be doing that. You know, you can find, I mean, your time is way too valuable. You should be negotiating, wheeling and dealing at job sites, overseeing. You should not be doing these menial tasks, right? This is something that can be delegated to a bookkeeper, or, I mean, there's software that could do that for you.
I also think you should like, all right, so let's say you get to $1 million a year. Don't go start a restaurant if you're a contractor. Stay in your lane for a little bit, right?
Amen.
Create that flywheel. What other home services can we add to build this business, right? And then you have the right hand on the construction side. Let's get the security camera side. Let me learn this, or you do an aqua hire, right? Where it's, you go out, you find somebody that's a solopreneur that's just fucking tired and beaten down, doesn't want to do it. Wants that. We just did this twice in the last month for our company. They want to work with a team. They want the vision, right? They're very good at what they do. They're just tired, burnt out, and they don't have the staff behind them to help them out. So you go and you acquire them, right? And if they're good at what they're doing and you give them the support system around them, they can build that portion of the business for you as well.
I love that.
I like that idea. What kind of hire did you call that? What was the name?
Hire, acquisition,
Okay.
hire, right? You're not hiring for the business. You're not hiring because you want the cash flow of the company. You're hiring for the talent, right? So right now we're looking to acquire accounting firms. I don't really care about the revenue. I care about the client base because I know I can up the revenue there, but I need the team. For me to go out, it's going to take a few months to put together a team, see if they jive well. If I could buy a team right now that's been working together for 5 years, they have a system and a process in place, that saves me months and months and months, right?
Absolutely.
You know, so yeah, it's called an aqua hire. So, I mean, anytime you're looking to buy a business, it's not just because you want the cash flow. At the end of the day, yeah, it's to grow a bigger business, but maybe you want the customer list, right? Maybe you want the real estate that the business has locked up on a long-term lease, you know? Maybe you want just to add a different division and to learn something about it too. You know, you could buy businesses for 10 to 20% down with earnout periods, get creative with the financing where it doesn't really cost you as much as you really think.
So let's talk about the financing. I've got the Wall Street background. Communicate with me some of the opportunities that are out there in our current economic state. Y'all have already mentioned the baby boomers, no succession plan, these small business, blue collar businesses. How do we go about buying these? Not the fundamentals of finding them or anything, but how do we finance them?
Okay, let's talk about this. Before we go and we talk about financing anything, let's find the deal and find the right seller. That's what matters. If we find a motivated seller, we can write the terms of the deal that we want. Now, I can sit here, I can give you the boring answer. Yeah, go do an SBA loan. Right now, they're what, 10%? They're not 7 anymore. Hate to break the news to you. They're a bitch to get qualified for. It's going to burn your deal out. You can go, and if you have a network, you can get investors too, and you can pay them. Those are great options. Me, I like to get a little bit more creative when we do things, right? So I learned from Roland Frazier and my friend Adam Lyons something called a deferred down payment. Have you guys heard of that before?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So deferred down payment is basically you don't give the down payment till after you close. Now, a lot of people want to do an asset sale only because they don't want the liability, right? I'm a big believer in doing a stock transfer. The reason I like the stock transfer is, first of all, it has to be a clean company. We have to do our due diligence legally to see where we stand, right? But I get the time in business from not starting a new corporation. So if this company has 20 years time in business, they have good business credit, right? I could acquire that business. I can acquire that business today with a stock transfer, use the cash flow of that business, which will be very expensive, revenue-based financing, right? Which is what we do all the time because we use the cash flow for the down payment and then work out an earnout or a consulting agreement with the owner to give them the down payment. Another thing that we've been seeing lately is when we're doing our due diligence in these companies, we're looking to see, you know, what tax incentives have they not taken advantage of over the last 3 years? People don't look for that, right? ERC is a big one. I know you guys know about that. There's still a lot of businesses out there that never took ERC. Some guys are afraid to take ERC because they're afraid of the government. So you got these old guys set in their ways. I don't need the government's money. I'm going to do that. Guess what? If you do a stock transfer, the business is yours. The ERC stands with the business. You could reclaim those funds for that. Same thing with the R&D research credit. We can go back 3 years, right? If we know that they spent money building out systems, processes, improving their products, buying software, customizing it, that's a home run. That's money back in my pocket that the seller doesn't even know that's there, which basically I'm going to take the money that he's owed and just give it to him.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We've not had anybody on the show yet, Kevin, that talked about the stock style purchase over the asset purchase.
Well, because you know what? You got to really do your homework. You need to understand what your risk is. If there's lawsuits on the horizon, depends on the industry type, you may not want to do that. But I mean, even after you do that, there's ways to do asset sales. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant, so I'm not even going to go there.
I know we've had some people communicate the LLC purchasing and then the ERC credits, and it is an issue if it's not in your purchase contract that you get the benefit of any past tax credits. So that's an important communication. Matter of fact, I had somebody reach out yesterday. I need to communicate that to him. I didn't think about it, but
well, it depends on how the deal is made, right?
Yeah,
and how it's set up. So
yeah. Because that's a weird conversation to go after you've purchased it and you're like, hey, you know what? This was available. You want to split it? Can I have it all?
Hey, Chris, when you buy a business, you buy the assets and the liabilities. And if you haven't taken a tax credit that was available in 2020, you are going to take it now. Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
So outside of the method of doing the deferred down payment, you guys sound like y'all are more preferred stock purchase over asset purchase type of deal. What other ways would you recommend that should be thought about when individuals come across a business they're trying to acquire, whether it's their first or they're doing a roll up or a bolt on, whatever the strategy is? What else is available out there on this creative financing thought process?
I mean, there's a lot of different vehicles. It really depends on the business. It's such a broad, it depends on the seller. It depends on the business, right? You know, I've seen people give somebody a watch for part of their business, right? And they got it. They bought a watch at a discounted price. They gave them, because they asked the seller, when you get this money, what are you going to do with it? Ask questions. That's the best advice I could tell you. The more you find out about a seller, the better you're going to be.
Yeah, Chris, and one thing that you have to understand, like these solutions, these are all custom suits. This is nothing off the rack. You know, you may have a principal that has not made any sort of contributions towards Social Security or 401k, and maybe you just keep them on the books for 3-4 years, right? And that creates a more robust Social Security profile for someone that's going into his golden years. You know, maybe you have a business that's really top heavy with physical assets, you know, machinery, equipment, trucks. You can leverage that. You may have, like in the garment industry and the manufacturing industry, you may have customers that are really top heavy with accounts receivables, but those could be out 6-9 months. You know, you can leverage the accounts receivable. So it really depends on like Matt said, on the nature of the business and also what the seller's needs are. But if you have that very transparent conversation over a cup of coffee and you really get to know what that person's desires are, look, I think in any negotiation, that old adage where if everyone's a little bit uncomfortable, everybody's happy.
I agree 100% in what you just said. You got to ask the questions, let them talk. They'll tell you your problems, and then you structure it, tailor it around their problems so that you're a problem solver. And that is the best negotiation process, is when you're there solving their problems.
You know, I think it also matters on the seller too. You got to figure out what type of seller they are, right? Are they another entrepreneur that's just tired and just don't want to deal with this anymore and they'll let it go for like pennies on the dollar? Is it somebody that really cares about their employees and everything that they built and it's a legacy play for them, right? Is it somebody that's just burnt out and I just want to get out? Right. So you really got to understand the seller's persona, and then you can customize the deal around that and your pitch, so to speak, for lack of a better word, of your offer.
Where do you see the biggest opportunity in the market? What industry, what asset class right now?
So, personally, I like the financial services space.
Why?
They sell at big multiples when you can roll them up, as you said before. I can buy accounting firms right now. If they're probably not even trading at SDE because they're usually they're not trading at EBITDA, they're trading at SDE, right? Which means I can buy them for 1x revenue for
Wow.
what they're
Really?
doing, and the majority of that, 1 to 1.2 times. But if I
And
roll
there's
them, and they're probably about 500,000 to $1 million in revenue, somewhere around there, right? But if once you get to 10 and 15 million, I can't give away all the secrets, but we have a game plan here where we turn them into a fintech, right?
Mm.
And then with the fintech and the technology, play the multiple, goes 4 times, 5 times, if not 20, if we get big enough, but 4 to
Right.
5.
Right. All right. So you've got a book. What does that book tell us? What if someone picks this book up? What are they expecting to get out of it?
Lou, you got this one, or you want me to do it? So,
All you, buddy, all you. I think your name was listed first as author, so this is all you.
I don't know how that was. Guys, this was one of the hardest things to write because if you can't tell already, me and Luigi are complete opposites, right? So I wrote my side, he wrote his side. Then we had to go meet.
Oh, time out. Matthew dictated his side.
Yeah. So we had to sit down with our great editor, Jenny, and she had to put it all together, and she did an amazing job taking my personality and his and mixing it together. But the whole idea of the book is very simple, is after everything we've been through, right, in this country, pandemics, terrorist attacks, right, there's rounds of layoffs and rounds of layoffs. We're seeing it happen right now. The government's dictating your future. We also believe that the American dream right now is not home ownership anymore. It's business ownership. Nobody, that dream that you had of a white picket fence, a yellow lab, 2.5 kids, a secure retirement from the government, it doesn't exist anymore. So we believe whether it's a side hustle or a full-on business, everybody needs to control their own identity and go out and either start, or in our opinion, you should buy a business, right? Overall, with 1,400 businesses hitting the market every day from baby boomers, with a lot of them that are profitable, you're probably better off buying a business that has a track record of making some type of money than you are starting a business. Because let me tell you something, you start a business, you're going to be in hundreds of thousands of dollars and not make money for the first 3 to 4 years minimum.
Matt, we agree with that. I mean, Chris and I always preach that, and we're from the people who started businesses.
Yeah.
I've done both. Looking back, I'll never start another business. It's always buying. It's a much easier way. I love that line. The new American dream is buying a business, not buying your own home. I watch this.
Think about it, man. It's like everybody I know, these millennials, Gen Z, they don't want to buy a home anymore, but they want to be entrepreneurs and they want to own a business.
Kevin, think about it. We're all pretty close in age. Think about it. When we were kids, that dream was go work for IBM, go work for, the local paving company, go work for, your dad's business, you put in your 30, 40 years, become a civil servant, whatever it was. And that was the American dream. The American dream was stability, right? Because the government, some way, somehow offered you that stability, right?
Yeah.
But now we've been on a nice roller coaster and we realize, well, we can't rely on Big Brother. We can't rely on Uncle Sam. So we probably have to resort to our own devices.
Lou, what you said early on in the show about being your parents were first generation from immigrants. That's what mine are. All my grandparents born in Ireland. My mom grew up in Staten Island, Matt. I was there every Sunday. And West Brighton, Pelton Avenue. So back then,
nice.
my parents,
that's a nice Irish community right there.
Yeah, their way out of kind of getting a better life, of course, was going to school and everything. That was drilled into us when we were young. And when I was 17 coming out of high school, I could get into colleges. My parents could afford it. They went crazy when I told them I'm not going. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. That was like the worst thing ever in 1991. But I went and did it. But now you look at kids and that degree doesn't mean much of anything. And we'll never see our kids work for one company for 40 years with a golden parachute. It will never happen.
No.
Buy a business. It's so much safer. I watched the movie Company Men. I had never seen that this weekend. If you showed that to an 18-year-old kid and you said, no, you should go get a job and do this, it would sound insane. I thought that when I was young, that's going to happen to that Company Men movie. What happened to Ben Affleck? If anyone hasn't watched that, that's going to happen to everyone at some point. If you think that you're going to stay there for 30 years, you're going to get fucked. Go buy a business, create it, control your own destiny. That's so much safer. That's what I'm teaching my kids.
But it just doesn't make economic sense anymore. You're going to tell a kid,
No.
go $250,000 in debt, right? Tell me, is this a good investment? Go $250,000 in debt. You have 4, maybe 5 years of lost business opportunity.
Yep.
And then when you come out, you're going to earn just above, average national wages. And you have very high cost of living, very high real estate, very high food expenses. The economics of the system doesn't make sense anymore.
None.
So not even that, like you brought up Staten Island, right? So in Staten Island, everybody usually goes to college, but when they get out of college, what do they become? They become a civil servant. And in order to become a civil servant in New York, I think they just changed it recently, you needed a college degree. So you had to spend all this money to go and be a police officer. My whole family's police officers, right? When you start working as a police officer, it's below the average salary in the country. Right. There were people in the police academy collecting welfare as they're going through the police academy, which makes no sense at all.
No.
Why do they do that, right? They do that because they want a secure job. But look at what's going on now. Every single pension program in New York City for civil servants is at risk. Chicago, this is going all over, right? Because the pension plans invest their money, right? So the commercial real estate state market right now that's going through a major downturn, these pension plans hold the notes indirectly for these skyscrapers because they were considered safe assets. When these are written off, the pension programs are getting written off, right? Because they're losing money. They're not going to have enough money in these pension funds to supply these civil servants that worked their asses off for years. So what's going to wind up happening is they're going to get less than they were told they were going to get when they started. And I think that's going to be a big problem in a lot of these democratic cities.
So what do you tell the person that is not that born entrepreneur? I mean, we've already said it, and I agree 100%. Not everybody's an entrepreneur. Not everybody has the resourcefulness and everything that's needed to have a company with a few employees. What's left for the other guy? Would you say it's just as safe as you take your skill set and you go do a side hustle and you play it as a solopreneur, and you let the QuickBooks Online, and then you go to what's the little accounting H&R Block at the end of the year? And I mean, is that just as safe as having a job?
Hey, Chris, there's nothing wrong with having a stable job, living within your means, staying away from debt, having very little stress. You come home at night, you sleep sound thoughts, right? So there's nothing wrong with that, right? Yeah. But this podcast isn't for people like that.
Right.
I mean, we've got like The Young and the Restless for people like that. So yeah. You watch your soap operas, you watch your, shows. This is geared for people with a certain mindset. We're gluttons for punishment. Like Matt and I, we worry at night. We wake up with agita. We stress over this stuff, right? We're worried that our clients are well serviced and happy. We're worried that our team is well compensated. Because the problem here is you can never cruise. You always have to keep growing, because being an entrepreneur is like being a shark. If you're not moving forward, you're sinking. I mean, there's competition, there's adversity, there's a lot of shit out there. So you have to keep fighting. But if you don't have that mindset, hey, there's nothing wrong with everything we've said. Working for, USA Corp is fantastic. Just live within your means. The average lifestyle in America is 10x the next country. So as long as you live a very average lifestyle, you're still going to have your iPhone. You're still going to have your new car every 3 years. You're going to have your steak dinner on Saturday nights. You're going to be fine. What you're not going to have is go to Barbados every month, right?
Right.
But you can live a very nice life in America so long as you're conservative.
I love that answer, Lou.
That's a good answer.
Live within your means. If you don't have that burning desire and you don't feel trapped at your current workplace to the point to where you've got to go do your own thing, just live within your means, be responsible with your finances, make some investments into alternative assets, in my opinion. I'm a real estate guy, so I would choose real estate over stocks, and try to keep the debt off. Most definitely only have debt on things like your personal home, if that's going to be your situation. But for everybody else, go start your business, or preferably go buy a business.
The other thing you can do if you're a W-2 employee, I have a friend, he's a dentist, he works for somebody. He's so not entrepreneurial. He's very conservative. He actually thinks that's being less risky. I think it's being more risky having one stream of income. The guy can fire him, but he invests in real estate. He always wants to invest in me. I just don't take investors on and stuff right now, but that's another way. If you invested in somebody who is entrepreneurial, who does own small businesses, and you can enjoy that upside. Of course, it's got to be the right person. You got to do massive due diligence, as you guys do, because everybody you meet at a barbecue's got an idea. Do not do that.
Yeah.
Track record. Has this guy won over and over? I have losses. They should have losses too, but you believe in them. Anybody doesn't have losses, get out of here with that.
Listen, if you like where you are and you love your work environment, you like your salary, and you've been good and you're accountable, there's going to be a time where maybe you can buy in and you can get some profit sharing. So you don't have to run the business, but you're very good at what you do.
Yeah.
Be a really good entrepreneur, right? Because we all won't have businesses unless we have right hands, ones and twos, and people that really believe in us and want to work side by side with us. They don't want to go do their own thing, but they know what we're doing. They're good at what they do, and they get rewarded well, right? Yeah. So what it comes down to is entrepreneurs, it's up to us too to reward our team. We actually had 2 people recently that I had trained earlier in the years, and they just came back to me because they wanted to be part of a team again. They tried to do it on their own, and it just wasn't for them, right? So they came back to us, and they're rewarded well because I trained them. I know they're good. I know what they're about to do, and we're not greedy, right? The more we grow, the more they grow. And that's the way we look at things.
There's another thing I want to make sure we mention before this interview's over with is you kind of hit on the topic of compensation and alignment. Really, that was the key word, was the alignment. I think it's very important. I forgot what we were talking about on the subject matter, but you said, the company's doing good, the team should do good. The company's not doing as good, the team doesn't get as much. When you have that alignment, I find that the motivation, I know what it was talking about hiring upper management, key people, that type stuff. The motivation is there when the alignment is there with the compensation. So as the business increases in revenue and in profits, those individuals' checks at the end of the week increase as well. We made that transition in our company with almost everybody at every position. There is a higher incentive base and a lower guarantee. And it really did change the culture, and it took a lot of that micromanaging out of the culture.
So what we did was we took a page out of the way we built the firm on Wall Street, right? Commission schedule, right? X amount of dollars in commission, you get a bump up, right? Get to a certain percentage for a period of time. You stay there. That's your, let's just call it, it's 50-50, then it goes 60-40, whatever it may be. You're a manager, you're running a team, you get an override on your team split, right? Depending on what scale they're at. So everybody eats. If the manager's running their team, the team's producing, they're at a higher payout, right? The other people are at a lower payout, but the manager is getting paid because he's having his team perform. Sky's the limit, at the end of the day. He has to stay on top of his people. So,
Chris, I'll give you a perfect example. This week, England just launched their universal basic income. So they're going to try this experiment where everyone gets $2,000 a month. Fantastic. Okay. I can tell you right now what's going to happen. In a couple of years, England is going to be, just like the United States, trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. And you've created an entire generation of lazy bastards. Okay. Because you've given that person a fish for a day and they're very comfortable eating that fish. But what they should be doing is teaching that person to fish. I know we've heard this analogy over and over again, but it rings true today. You have to incentivize people to grow, and through education or through know-how. And Lord knows we need more of these trade schools, right? Because there's a huge, huge vacuum in America. So if we can instill that sort of discipline and work ethic, this country will continue being great, irregardless of whether you have your own business or not.
One thing I will say is it's not money. Money motivates me. Money motivates Luigi. Some people are not motivated by money. And me and Luigi have a hard time with this sometimes. When we're talking about people, I'm like, what can we do? Sometimes it's a trip, right? Sometimes it's let's get together and go to dinner, every couple months. They just want that camaraderie.
Chris, it's crazy. Sometimes you have to send people like a bottle of wine or an apple pie, and they appreciate that more than money. To me, they're insane, but hey, I'm learning your language.
A lot of times it's just a simple fact of stopping and acknowledging that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, not going above and beyond, but just what is expected, acknowledging it and praising them for that. That was one of the biggest things for me to get past, is because I was like, there's no reason for me to stop and throw a celebration. You're just doing what was expected. You didn't go above and beyond. But I have gradually learned that as I've gotten more experience as a business owner.
Kevin, Chris,
everything.
I appreciate so much more when Matthew tells me to go fuck myself and sends me a wire, as opposed to when he tells me I love you and doesn't send me a wire.
and so forth. Is the money is the motivator there again. Well, I think we've dropped a lot of nuggets here. How does everybody get in touch with you, and also where do you want them to go find your book so that they can take away what you meant when you were writing, and y'all took the time to really invest that so that others could hopefully rob some time from your experience?
Yeah, so everybody go to Amazon. We're on Amazon.com. And you could just put in Buying the American Dream. It'll come up. We were a bestseller over there. You can go to our podcast website. It's on the top link. It's theliquidlunchproject.com. You can go to our website, shieldadvisorygroup.com, or you could hit me or Luigi up on the socials. I'm at Matthew R. Meehan, and Luigi is at Luigi Rosabianca. Chris, thank you so much for having us here, man. Kevin, we appreciate it.
Thank you for having it.
It's been a lot of fun, and your audience is very fortunate to have you guys. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Hey, Matthew, send me all of those links if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And I'll get them posted in the comments, and then everybody will have quick access. We appreciate y'all.
We got to get you guys on our podcast too. We got to schedule that.
Absolutely. We would love it, man. We appreciate y'all taking the time. You guys are some killers out there in the business world, and we're all just getting started. So I'm excited to see where you're at next year.
So much great info. Yeah, follow up. We'll be happy to be on yours.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
All right. Take care.